And welcome back to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. This is Michael Andrews, and this is our Clear Talk segment. Clear Talk, bringing you the best in information to help you make informed decisions. And this week, coming back again, is John Nunes from Fortis Insurance Solutions, where he's been in the business for 28 years. He knows what he's talking about. And last week, we were discussing, what is it about this term insurance? Some of it is, a lot of people don't know, but there's availability and benefits within a term insurance that comes along that can pay you while you're alive if you happen to have a life emergency. People had posed questions to him when they contacted him this past week, and we're going to share that with you today. And of course, he'll tell you how you can reach him so you can have a no-cost overview on what you currently have. Or maybe you have questions in general, and he'll be able to answer those as well. John, welcome back to Clear Talk. How are you today?
Doing fantastic, Michael. Thanks for having me back on again.
Absolutely, man. So glad to have you, man. You were answering a lot of questions. You were telling me that folks had really good questions, and you thought maybe you just share some generalized questions to educate our listeners again. So, what were the questions you were getting? Because people were asking a lot about, the living benefits. Some people said they had term insurance for over 10 years and didn't know anything about this. So, I want you to just explain to the people if it's too late for them or what's available to them. What is it that they don't know? Let's educate our people, man, and let them know that they do have an option. And so what were some of the questions that you received when you were talking to these people?
Well, first of all, let me just kind of start off on how incredible your show has been, Michael, because the amount of people who actually got back to me was amazing with all different age demographics. So we'll get to those questions that people asked. But for those who weren't able to join us last week, just to kind of give you a Reader's Digest version of what we chatted about last week, we were talking about the differences between term life insurance, the traditional, simple term life insurance with no living benefits, versus today's insurance policies, the term living policies that have actually 3 living benefits. And simply what that means to your audience is that if you ever had any type of medical or any health issues that were considered either a chronic, a critical, or a terminal illness, you would be able to access the death benefit of your life insurance policy while you're still alive. Now, there's reasons, different things that you would need to know to be able to access it, but that's the beauty of these policies is that you now have that option available to you. So having said that, we're going to go over some of the questions that people had last week in regards to what we just discussed. And one of the questions we had here, Michael, was from a gentleman who says, you know what, John, I'm 35, I've got 2 kids, and I've got coverage through work. Is that going to be enough for me? And to answer this question, group coverage is typically limited with the amount of death benefit that comes with it, because usually what the employers base it on would be what your annual salary is. And since it's a group benefit, usually they'll go up to 2, maybe 3 times your annual salary. Now, the problem with these policies is that if you ever have to leave the job or they laid you off, these policies are not portable and you would lose the coverage. And the reason why that's an important point, Michael, because let's say that I'm 30 years old and I'm working with a company, and 20 years down the road, I'm 50, and now I get laid off and I lose my insurance. If I wanted to get my own standalone policy, I'm now 50 years old. So the cost is going to be more than if I would have got it when I was 30. But what if I had a health episode where the potential is I may not even be insurable? So those are the things that need to be taken into consideration when we are discussing the insurance that you get through group benefits with your employer versus your own standalone policy.
Some people have thought for years that, I'm fine, I have it through my job, until the job lays them off or terminates them or just cuts that employment altogether. And then, I think you hit that on the head. Once they're no longer there, their cost of insurance can go up now. It has to be portable. I'm speaking with John Nunes with Fortis Insurance Solutions. These are just one of the questions that was posed to him. And I thought that was really a good one because many people do feel that insurance through their job is somehow very secure. Yeah, but there's still no living benefits to that in most cases in that aspect. What other questions did you get?
One of the topics that we had discussed last week, obviously, are the living benefits with the terminal, chronic, and critical illness riders. So this gentleman actually asked me the question, says, John, you know what? I'm age 52. and I'm worried about burning through my retirement savings if I get sick. Can term insurance help me?
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely yes, especially the ones that have the accelerated death benefits or the living benefits, as we like to call them. Because if you ever had any type of medical emergency, and again, these things don't come on a schedule. They can hit you just like this. You could be healthy one moment, and the next second, one of these illnesses can hit you. And now the whole point here is, if it does happen to you, what are your options to make sure that you are taken care of, that your family's taken care of, that you have access to money that's going to be able to sustain the lifestyle, pay the bills, take care of the mortgage or whatnot. And so the argument is, well, if I'm working and I have employee benefits and part of those employee benefits is health insurance, John, wouldn't that health insurance cover my expenses? Well, yeah, they would cover certain expenses, but not everything, because there's also the aftercare once you have left the hospital. It might be possible you might need to have in-home care. Your health insurance doesn't cover that. So who's going to pay for that? And so the problem here is this gentleman here is worried that, hey, I've got a nice retirement savings that I've worked the last 20, 30 years to put money into. I got a nice little nest egg, but I don't want to have to use it if I have a health episode, because it was never earmarked for that. It was earmarked for me to enjoy when I retire. So here's where this term policy comes in, Michael. They come with 3 living benefits, like we had mentioned earlier, the chronic illness, the critical illness, and the terminal illness. So if any of those illnesses are diagnosed for the insured, they would be able to actually access the death benefit while they're still alive. And the importance of being able to do that is you are now leveraging the insurance company and your life insurance policy to take care of expenses that otherwise would have had to be taken care of through other means. And one of the areas that this gentleman was worried about was having to go through his retirement savings. Well, having an insurance policy with the 3 living benefits, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
Not at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking with John Nunes with Fortis Insurance Solutions, for those of you who just tuned in. So John, speak on how there are people out there who are just not aware of this because maybe they're just told buy term insurance, just buy term and invest the difference. How does this play compared to that ideology?
Now, the problem is that there are a lot of agents out there that only have access to maybe one option. And sometimes that option is not the best option for the client, but the only reason why it's being brought to the client's attention is because that's the only product that agent can sell. Because when you're in the insurance industry, Michael, there's 2 types of agents. There's captive agents, which work for a company, and they're only able to sell the product that company offers. And then there's non-captive, like myself, we're independent agents, and we can gain access to any carrier that's out there. And the reason why that is such a big benefit is because every client is different. They have their own needs, and they're going to need, tailor-made products for them. So having multiple options ensures that we're going to be able to find the right product for our clients rather than trying to force them to fit into a single option that a lot of agents out there only have access to.
What else did you come up with? Any other questions that people were posing to you that you can share?
Yeah, one of the other questions that we had out there, it was a younger person, and what they were saying was, they said, John, look I'm age 27. My wife and I just recently got married last year, and we just bought our first house. We don't have any kids yet, but do we really need term life insurance already? The answer to that is yes, because what you want to do is, if you have assets right now, and you got to remember, the most important asset that any person has is their ability to produce an income. And if you get sick and you lose that ability, then how is your life going to be able to continue? You remember, like this gentleman said here, they just bought a house. If he's unable to work, how are they going to pay for the mortgage? If they decide that they do want to have kids later on, do they have the means to put their kids through college? If God forbid something happened to me, or either I passed away or I lost my ability to produce an income. And so the first thing that we always talk about when we're looking at a financial plan or a financial system is, what is the most important thing to do initially? And that first part is always the protect part. You have to find a way to protect your ability to produce an income, because everything flows from that. And so at his age, yes. And one of the benefits too is when you're young and you're healthy, you can get insurance at a lower cost than you would if you were 10, 15, 20 years older. And then maybe you had a health episode where all of a sudden now it's going to cost you more to get the same policy simply because you waited. Worst case scenario would be something would happen to this gentleman and he didn't have coverage. Then what? Do you have to sell the home? Do you have to pull your kids out of private school? Do you have to exhaust any type of life savings that you might have to pay for medical expenses that your health insurance doesn't cover? So those are all those things that you have to take into consideration when you're doing financial planning and utilizing the term life insurance with living benefits.
John Nunes, Fortis Insurance Solutions. Give him a call, 1-800-900-3150, 1-800-900-3150. John, keep us posted. When you come back next week, so let's build on this. I want people to know about the various types of life insurance, what's available, what's outdated, and also, too, I'm sure people will have questions about these true living benefits, what they are, what they're not, and how perhaps they could have been missing out this whole time. Again, I found out about this 21 years ago, and there are still insurance agents out there selling the old type as if it's brand new when it's outdated. Thank you for helping us keep the people informed, man. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on again, Michael. My
pleasure. We'll see you next time. Ladies and gentlemen, John Nunes with Fortis Insurance Solutions. Give him a call, okay? 1-800-900-3150. Now let's get back to some more music here on Sacramento Smooth Jazz.